Being pregnant makes you a liability, Jessica. We need someone we can count on. Those were my boss's exact words as security escorted me out of the office while I was 6 months pregnant. But what he didn't know was that at that very moment, I was starting to lay the foundation for the empire that would eventually buy his company. Sometimes the best revenge is massive success. Before I continue with this absolutely insane workplace revenge story, I need to ask you something. Have you ever been discriminated against for something completely beyond your control? Have you ever been made to feel like your life circumstances made you less valuable as a person? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from, because this story is going to show you exactly why you should never let anyone else define your worth. This is a true story about pregnancy discrimination, building an empire out of spite, and the sweet taste of justice served 5 years later. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the biggest setbacks often lead to the greatest comebacks. My name is Jessica Martinez, and I'm 34 years old. Today, I'm the CEO of a $50 million marketing company with 200 employees across 3 cities. But 5 years ago, I was a single mother struggling to pay rent after being fired for the crime of being pregnant. Let me take you back to where it all began, because understanding my journey is crucial to understanding why what happened next was so incredibly satisfying. In 2018, I was 29 years old and the senior marketing manager at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions in downtown Seattle. I'd worked my way up from an entry-level assistant over 6 years, earning every promotion through late nights, weekend projects, and consistently exceeding targets. I was good at my job. No, I was exceptional. I'd brought in 3 major clients that year, including a $2 million contract with a tech startup that became our biggest account. My campaigns had won industry awards. My team respected me. I thought I was untouchable. That was before I got pregnant. My husband Mike and I had been trying to have a baby for 2 years. When we finally got the positive test, we were over the moon. We'd planned everything carefully. We had savings, good insurance through my job, and a stable income that could support a family. What we didn't plan for was how quickly everything could fall apart. The pregnancy wasn't easy. I had severe morning sickness that lasted well into my 2nd trimester. Some days I had to work from home because I couldn't keep food down. But I never missed a deadline, never let my performance slip, and actually landed another major client while dealing with constant nausea. My direct supervisor, Jennifer Walsh, was understanding. She'd been through pregnancy herself and knew the challenges. But Jennifer reported to Regional Director David Peterson, and David had very different ideas about pregnant employees. David was old-school corporate mid-50s, never took a sick day, believed that dedication meant physical presence in the office regardless of circumstances. He'd made comments before about how family obligations affected workplace commitment. I should have seen the warning signs. At 20 weeks, during a routine team meeting, I announced my pregnancy to the broader team. I'd already told Jennifer privately, but company policy required disclosure once you reached a 2nd trimester. The reaction was mixed. My team was supportive and excited, but I noticed David's expression immediately change. His congratulations felt forced, and he asked pointed questions about my plans for balancing responsibilities. "We'll need to discuss transition planning," he said after the meeting. "Important accounts require consistent oversight." I assured him I was planning to work right up until delivery and return after standard maternity leave. I'd researched the Family and Medical Leave Act thoroughly and knew my rights. That was my first mistake, assuming my legal rights would actually protect me. The changes started subtle. Projects I'd been leading were suddenly redistributed for efficiency. Client meetings I'd been attending for months suddenly didn't require marketing input. My access to certain systems was mysteriously downgraded. Jennifer tried to shield me from the worst of it, but she was fighting an uphill battle against David's systematic marginalization campaign. "He's trying to build a case," she warned me privately. "Document everything. Every email, every conversation, every responsibility he takes away from you." I started keeping detailed records, but it felt surreal. How was this happening in 2018? At a progressive company in Seattle? Pregnancy discrimination was illegal. There were policies in place. This couldn't actually be happening, but it was. At 24 weeks, David called me into his office for what he termed a performance review. Jessica, I'm concerned about your recent output, he began, sliding a folder across his desk. I opened it to find a collection of cherry-picked examples. One email I'd sent at PM instead of PM, a client call I'd rescheduled due to a doctor's appointment, a project timeline that had been delayed by a client's indecision but was being attributed to my lack of follow-through. David, you know these examples are misleading, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The Henderson project delay was entirely on the client side. You were in that meeting. I'm documenting a pattern of reliability issues, he replied coolly. Your condition is clearly affecting your ability to maintain our standards. My condition, not my pregnancy, not my situation, my condition, like it was a disease. My performance metrics are still above team average, I countered. I landed the Morrison account last month while half the team couldn't even get them to return calls. That was before your condition progressed, David said. I'm concerned about your ability to handle high-stress situations in your current state. I left that meeting shaking with anger and fear. He was building a paper trail to justify firing me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Jennifer was furious when I told her what happened. He can't do this, Jessica. It's textbook pregnancy discrimination. But he is doing it, I replied. And he's being careful to make it look performance-based. That night, I called an employment attorney. The consultation was discouraging. These cases are hard to prove, the lawyer explained. Companies have learned to be subtle. Unless he explicitly says he's firing you for being pregnant, it becomes a he said she said situation about performance. But I have documentation of the performance issues being fabricated. That helps. But companies can always claim they had legitimate business reasons for their decisions. Without smoking gun evidence, these cases often settle for much less than people expect. I couldn't afford a lengthy legal battle on an entry-level salary. Mike was between jobs after his startup folded. We needed my income and insurance now more than ever. I decided to stick it out, document everything, and hope David would back down once the baby arrived and I proved I could handle both motherhood and my job. That was my second mistake. At 26 weeks, the situation escalated dramatically. I was assigned to present a quarterly review to our biggest client, the tech startup I'd originally landed. It was a high-stakes presentation that could determine whether they renewed their contract. I spent 2 weeks preparing market research, competitive analysis, campaign performance data, strategic recommendations for the next quarter. It was some of my best work. The morning of the presentation, I woke up with severe Braxton Hicks contractions. My doctor had warned me this could happen, false labor pains that were intense but not dangerous. She recommended rest and hydration, but cleared me for light activity. I called Jennifer at AM to let her know I might need to dial into the presentation instead of attending in person. That's fine, she said. Your slides are excellent. We can handle it remotely if needed. But David had other plans. At 8:30 AM, 30 minutes before the presentation, he called me. Jessica, I'm concerned about your reliability today. This is a crucial client meeting, and we can't risk any complications. I'm available to present remotely, I assured him. I have full connectivity and all my materials ready. That's not sufficient for a client of this importance. I'm going to have Marcus take over the presentation. Marcus was a junior associate who'd been with the company for 8 months. He was smart but had never worked on this account and knew nothing about the nuanced strategy I'd developed. David, with respect, that doesn't make sense. I've been leading this account for 2 years. The client expects to hear from me. They'll understand that we're putting our most reliable team members on their account. Most reliable. The implication was clear. This is pregnancy discrimination, David. You can't remove me from my own accounts because I'm pregnant. There was a pause. Then, I'm documenting your refusal to accept management decisions, Jessica. This isn't about your pregnancy. This is about your inability to fulfill your responsibilities. He hung up. The presentation went terribly. Marcus didn't understand the strategy, couldn't answer detailed questions, and the client was visibly confused about why their primary contact wasn't presenting. We lost the contract. David blamed me entirely. Your unavailability cost us our biggest client, he said in the subsequent meeting. This is exactly the kind of reliability issue I've been documenting. I was available, I replied. You chose to replace me with someone who wasn't prepared. You were having medical complications that prevented you from attending in person. Braxton Hicks contractions aren't medical complications. They're a normal part of pregnancy that my doctor cleared me to work through. The point is, Jessica, your condition is now directly impacting our business relationships. We need team members we can count on to be present for crucial meetings. I could see where this was heading, but I was powerless to stop it. 2 days later, David called me into his office again. This time, HR Director Monica Williams was present. My stomach dropped when I saw her. This wasn't going to be a performance discussion. Jessica, we need to discuss your employment status, David began, consulting a folder that I assumed contained his carefully constructed documentation. Over the past several weeks, we've observed a pattern of performance issues that we believe are related to your inability to maintain our standards while managing your personal situation. Monica nodded along, though I could see discomfort in her expression. The loss of the Morrison account was the final indicator that this arrangement isn't working for either party. What arrangement? I asked. My employment? The arrangement where I've been one of your top performers for 6 years. Jessica, Monica interjected gently. We understand this is a difficult time for you, but the company needs to consider what's best for our clients and our team. What's best for your clients is keeping the account manager who's been delivering results for 2 years, not replacing her with someone who doesn't know the account. David leaned forward. Your condition is clearly affecting your judgment and your ability to make rational business decisions. Yesterday's reaction to a simple management reassignment showed us that your priorities are no longer aligned with the company's needs. There it was. My condition, my priorities, everything coded just carefully enough to avoid explicitly saying you're pregnant and therefore unreliable. Being pregnant makes you a liability, Jessica, David continued, apparently forgetting his careful language for a moment. We need someone we can count on. Monica shot him a warning look, but it was too late. He'd said it explicitly. You're firing me for being pregnant, I said, making sure my voice was clear and steady. We're terminating your employment due to performance issues and inability to fulfill your responsibilities, Monica corrected quickly. Your pregnancy is not a factor in this decision. Except David just said being pregnant makes me a liability. That's not what I said, David replied, though we all knew it was exactly what he'd said. Jessica, Monica continued, we're prepared to offer a severance package that includes continued health insurance through the end of your pregnancy. We think this is the best solution for everyone. A severance package. They were buying my silence. And if I don't accept this generous offer, then your employment ends today with standard termination benefits, David said coldly. I looked at Monica, hoping to see some sign that she recognized how wrong this was. But she was focused on her paperwork, probably calculating how much the company might pay in a discrimination lawsuit versus the cost of a few months of health insurance. I need to think about this. Ma'am, we'll need you to gather your personal items, one of them said gently. The walk to my office felt endless. Colleagues who'd worked with me for years stared as I was escorted through the hallway like I'd committed a crime. Some looked sympathetic, others looked away. Jennifer met me at my office. Jessica, I'm so sorry. I tried to stop this. I know you did, I replied, starting to pack my personal items into a cardboard box. It's not your fault. This is illegal. You know that, right? Knowing it and proving it are two different things. I packed slowly, trying to process what was happening. 6 years of building my career, of proving myself, of exceeding expectations gone in one meeting because I was pregnant. As I packed, I found a file folder I'd been working on in my spare time. It contained research for a marketing automation platform. I'd been designing something that could help small businesses manage their marketing without hiring expensive agencies. I'd been planning to propose it as a new service line for Pinnacle. Now, looking at those documents while being escorted out like a criminal, I had a different idea. Maybe it was time to build something of my own. That afternoon, I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at the building where I'd spent 6 years building my career. I had until PM to decide whether to accept their severance offer or fight. The practical considerations were overwhelming. I was 26 weeks pregnant, had a mortgage, car payments, and needed health insurance. Mike was still job hunting. We had some savings, but not enough to sustain us through a lengthy legal battle. The severance package included 3 months of salary and health insurance through my due date. It wasn't generous, but it would keep us afloat. The catch was the non-disclosure agreement. If I accepted, I couldn't discuss the circumstances of my termination with anyone. I couldn't warn other pregnant women about what to expect. I couldn't share my story. I called the employment attorney again. The severance offer isn't bad, she admitted. If we fight this, you might win more, but it could take 2 years and cost you tens of thousands in legal fees. And there's always the risk we lose entirely. What about the principle? What about making sure this doesn't happen to other women? I understand the principle, Jessica, but you have a baby coming and bills to pay. Sometimes the practical decision is the right decision. I sat in that parking lot for 2 hours weighing my options. Fight and risk everything, or take the money and stay quiet. Then I thought about my daughter. I'd found out the week before that we were having a girl. What kind of world was I building for her? One where women had to choose between motherhood and career, where companies could discriminate and buy silence. At 4:45 p.m., I walked back into the building. I'll take the severance, I told Monica, but I wanted in writing that this termination was due to pregnancy discrimination. Jessica, we can't put that in writing because it's not true. Then I guess we don't have a deal. Monica and David exchanged glances. The offer expires at 5 p.m., David said. Then it expires. I walked out of that building with no severance, no health insurance, and no safety net. But I walked out with my integrity intact and my story untold only by choice, not by contract. That night, Mike and I sat at our kitchen table, running the numbers. Without my income and insurance, we had maybe 3 months before we'd have to consider bankruptcy. We'll figure it out, Mike said, though I could see the worry in his eyes. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. How is losing my job while pregnant a blessing? He pulled out the file folder I'd brought home from my office, my marketing automation research. You've been talking about this idea for months. Maybe now you have the motivation to actually try it. I looked at those documents, months of research, competitive analysis, technical specifications. It was a good idea. No, it was a great idea. But starting a company while pregnant and unemployed seemed insane. We don't have startup capital. We don't have a safety net. I don't have experience running a business. You have something better, Mike said. You have nothing left to lose. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. I was pregnant, unemployed, and trying to build a business from our spare bedroom. I started by reaching out to my network, former colleagues, industry contacts, small business owners I'd worked with. I couldn't tell them why I'd left Pinnacle. Professional discretion seemed wise, but I could tell them about my new venture. I'm developing a marketing automation platform specifically for small businesses, I'd explain. Something that provides enterprise-level marketing tools at a price point that makes sense for companies with limited budgets. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Small business owners loved the concept, but they needed to see a working product before they'd commit to contracts. That meant I needed to build a minimum viable product with no funding, no team, and a rapidly approaching due date. Mike helped where he could, but his programming skills were limited. I taught myself basic web development through YouTube tutorials and online courses, working 12-hour days despite increasing pregnancy fatigue. The hardest part wasn't the technical challenges, it was the constant reminder of what I'd lost. Every day, I'd see updates from former colleagues on LinkedIn, celebrating campaigns I should have been leading, accounts I'd built being managed by people who didn't understand the strategy. David had replaced me with 2 junior associates who were struggling to maintain the relationships I'd spent years building. Several clients had already canceled their contracts. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I felt angry that good work was being destroyed by bad management. At 32 weeks, I had a working prototype. It wasn't pretty, but it functioned. I could demonstrate automated email campaigns, social media scheduling, and basic analytics, everything a small business needed to compete with larger companies. I started reaching out to potential beta clients, offering free trials in exchange for feedback and testimonials. My first client was Rosa Martinez, who owned a small bakery in Capitol Hill. She'd been trying to build an online presence but couldn't afford a marketing agency. "This is exactly what I need," she said after I walked her through the platform. "How much does it cost?" I'd been dreading this question. I'd done market research on pricing, but actually asking someone to pay for something I'd built felt terrifying. $200 a month, I said, trying to sound confident. That's it? I was quoted $5,000 a month by the last agency I talked to. Rosa became my first paying customer. Then she referred me to 3 other small business owners. Within a month, I had 8 clients and $1,600 in monthly recurring revenue. It wasn't enough to live on, but it was proof that the concept worked. Emma was born at 38 weeks, healthy and perfect. I'd worked up until the day before delivery, coding customer requests from my hospital bed between contractions. Mike took 2 weeks off to help with the baby, but we couldn't afford for him to stay home longer. I was back to work within a week, managing client accounts while breastfeeding and changing diapers. It sounds impossible now, but desperation is a powerful motivator. We needed income, and my little platform was generating just enough to keep us afloat. The turning point came when Emma was 6 weeks old. I was on a video call with a potential client, trying to manage a crying baby and a technical demonstration simultaneously. "I'm so sorry," I apologized, bouncing Emma while explaining our analytics features. "I'm working from home with a newborn." Instead of being put off, the client, a woman who owned a marketing consultancy, was impressed. "You built this while pregnant and you're running it with a baby? That's exactly the kind of resourcefulness I want in a vendor." She not only signed up but referred me to 5 other women-owned businesses. Word spread through networks of female entrepreneurs who were impressed by the story of a new mother building a tech company from her spare bedroom. By Emma's first birthday, I had 50 clients and $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue. I'd hired 2 part-time contractors and moved operations from our spare bedroom to a small shared office space. By year 2, we had 150 clients, 5 full-time employees, and had attracted our first round of investment funding. I was featured in Seattle Business Magazine as one of 30 under 30 entrepreneurs to watch. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was getting recognition for the same drive and innovation that David Peterson had called unreliable when I was pregnant. In year 3, something unexpected happened. Pinnacle Marketing Solutions was struggling. The company had lost several major clients after my departure, and David's cost-cutting measures had created a reputation problem in the industry. They'd laid off 30% of their staff, including Jennifer, who'd become my first senior hire. "The company's in trouble," Jennifer told me over coffee. "They're looking for a buyer, but their client retention numbers are terrible. No one wants to acquire a company that's losing accounts." I'd been following Pinnacle's decline with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because David's discriminatory management style was finally catching up with him. Sadness because good people were losing their jobs because of his failures. That conversation planted a seed. My company was growing rapidly, but we were focused on small businesses. Acquiring Pinnacle would give us immediate access to mid-market clients and accelerate our growth by years. More importantly, it would give me the chance to implement the kind of workplace culture I wished I'd had when I was pregnant. I ran the numbers with my CFO. Pinnacle's valuation had dropped significantly, making it an affordable acquisition target. Their client contracts, even with the recent losses, were worth more than their asking price. But the real appeal wasn't financial, it was justice. The company that had discriminated against me for being pregnant would become the foundation for building something better. "It's poetic," Mike said when I told him about the opportunity. "But are you sure you want to go back to that environment?" "I'm not going back," I replied. "I'm taking over." The acquisition process took 6 months. Pinnacle's board was desperate enough to accept an offer that was 40% below market value, but they had conditions. David Peterson had negotiated a golden parachute that would pay him 2 years of salary if he was terminated without cause within 12 months of any ownership change. The board wanted assurance that existing management would be retained during the transition. I agreed to their terms, knowing I had other plans. The day the acquisition closed was surreal. I walked into the same building where I'd been escorted out by security 4 years earlier, but this time I was walking in as the owner. Most of the employees didn't recognize me initially. The company had turned over significantly, and I looked different, more confident, professionally styled, clearly successful. David was in his office when I arrived for the all-hands meeting to announce the acquisition. He looked older, stressed, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. "Good morning, everyone," I began, standing in the same conference room where I'd been fired. "I'm Jessica Martinez, CEO of Martinez Marketing Solutions, and as of today, the new owner of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions." I watched faces in the crowd, seeing a mix of curiosity and concern. Acquisitions usually meant layoffs. "Some of you might remember me," I continued, making eye contact with David. "I worked here from 2012 to 2018 as a senior marketing manager." David's face went wide as recognition dawned. "I left to start my own company, which has grown to 200 employees and $50 million in annual revenue. Today, that company acquired Pinnacle." The room was completely silent. David looked like he was going to be sick. "I want to assure everyone that this acquisition is about growth, not cuts. We're here to build something better, not tear something down. However," I continued, "we will be making some changes to ensure that our combined company reflects our values of innovation, excellence, and respect for all employees." I looked directly at David. "Values that include supporting working parents, providing equal opportunities regardless of family status, and creating an environment where everyone can thrive." After the meeting, David approached me in the hallway. "Jessica, congratulations on your success," he said awkwardly. "Thank you, David. I hope you know that what happened before. That was different times, different policies, different times," I replied. "David, this was 2018, not 1958. Pregnancy discrimination was just as illegal then as it is now. Maybe we could discuss a transition plan that works for everyone." I handed him an envelope. "Your termination letter, effective immediately. For cause. For cause. You can't terminate me for cause without documentation." "I have plenty of documentation, David. Starting with the recording I made of you saying being pregnant makes you a liability during my termination meeting." His face went completely pale. "You recorded that meeting?" "I recorded every interaction we had after my pregnancy announcement. It's all admissible evidence of systematic discrimination. But your severance agreement—" "I never signed a severance agreement, remember?" I walked away rather than accept your hush money. David looked around desperately, as if someone might rescue him from this situation. "Pack your office, David. Security will escort you out." 6 months later, the transformation was complete. The combined company had grown to 300 employees across 5 cities. We'd retained 90% of Pinnacle's clients and added 150 new ones. More importantly, we'd created the kind of workplace I'd dreamed of when I was pregnant and desperate. Our parental leave policy provides 6 months of paid leave for primary caregivers and 3 months for secondary caregivers. We have on-site childcare, flexible working arrangements, and a culture that celebrates working parents rather than marginalizing them. Monica Williams, the former HR director who'd sat silently during my termination, applied for a position with our company. "I'm sorry about what happened," she said during her interview. "I should have spoken up." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was scared." David controlled promotions, raises, terminations. Speaking up meant risking my own job, and now I want to work for a company where speaking up is encouraged, not punished. I hired her as our director of employee relations, specifically to ensure that no one would ever feel powerless in the face of discrimination again. Today, 40% of our senior leadership team are working parents. We've been recognized as one of the best places to work for families 3 years running. Our employee retention rate is 94%, compared to an industry average of 68%. The financial success followed naturally. When you create an environment where people can bring their whole selves to work, they perform better. When you support working parents instead of discriminating against them, you tap into a level of loyalty and dedication that can't be bought. Last month, Emma turned 5. She comes to the office sometimes after school, doing homework in the conference room that was built specifically for working parents who need to bring their children to work. She doesn't know the full story, yet she's too young to understand discrimination and workplace politics. But someday I'll tell her about the day Mommy was fired for being pregnant, and how that terrible day led to building something beautiful. Because sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. The company that fired me for being unreliable now employs 300 people who never have to choose between their career and their family. The boss who called me a liability would probably be shocked to know that supporting working parents isn't just the right thing to do, it's also the profitable thing to do. That's the lesson I hope everyone takes from this story. Your worth isn't determined by other people's biases. Your potential isn't limited by their narrow thinking. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just success, it's using that success to build a better world for everyone who comes after you. If this story inspired you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about turning setbacks into comebacks. Because your current situation isn't your final destination, it's just your starting point.